Don't you feel like the world kind of resembles dream logic these days?
Let me give a little dream report of the dream I had last night. Kicked a little dream last night. This is what it was. I was watching a video essay, a YouTube video essay. And the video essay was like, you see, Minecraft is a very well-known game, but here's a little secret that helped it in its development. It's so stupid dream, man. It was such a serious video essay. The tone of it, super serious. And it was like, well, when Minecraft was first being developed, they didn't know what to add to the game. But they looked around and they saw this other popular indie game called Minecraft. So they actually took blocks from the other popular indie game, Minecraft, and put it in Minecraft. It doesn't make sense.
You know, one of my favorite movies of all time is the David Cronenberg adaptation of Naked Lunch.
Well, not intentionally. I mean, on the level of conscious intention, it's insane, monstrous.
But you do consciously know it. You just said it. We're discussing it.
Not consciously. This is all happening telepathically, non-consciously.
What do you mean?
If you look carefully at my lips, you realize that I'm actually saying something else. I'm not actually telling you about the several ways I'm gradually murdering Joan.
Man, it's such a good movie. I still haven't read the book. I know. I feel ashamed. But that movie, it does such a good job of capturing the strange dream logic that I just love. And that's what this video is all about, dreams. So we talk about a movie. Dream logic is, I feel like it's all about memory. I think that's where dream logic comes from. It comes from a lack of continuity, because you don't really remember what just happened. And so your brain just sort of fills in the gaps. Each tiny little slice of time, sliver of time, makes sense. But it can't picture the previous sliver of time, you know? And so you just get these little individual slivers which on their own make sense. But once you piece them all together into a narrative, it becomes absurd and nonsensical. And I think that's how those AI videos kind of work as well, and that's why they give me such a dreamlike feeling. It's not just me. I mean, the original, if you remember the really OG, put footage in here. Yeah, the really OG Google Dream. It was called Deep Dream, and the one I used to make that video at the beginning was called Dream Machine. Like, clearly is very apparent. There's something dream-like about these AI videos. And in fact, I don't remember where I read this, but I remember reading once that there's a theory that the only reason cinema works in the first place is because of dreams. Like, if you think about it, it's kind of strange that we can watch a movie with cuts and it's not jarring when you see cuts in a movie. It feels very natural. Maybe a part of it is that we grow up watching videos with cuts in them, but this theory proposed that the reason why the Kuleshov effect works, the reason why having cuts in a movie feels like it makes intuitive sense to us, is because that's kind of how dreams operate, where you're just sort of in one place and you're sort of in another place, but there's a sense of continuity to the whole thing. I think there's interesting stuff going on here. Okay, dog report. Just kidding, it's a fucking dream report. So we had tickets to go see Kendrick Lamar. So we pull up to the venue, except it's the most fucked up venue of all time because it was shaped like this. So there's this big room right? I had to get this on video because otherwise there's no way to explain it. There's one big room, right? Very tall, very ridiculously tall. And this is where all the rows of seats were, right? Like rows of seats like that. Except then there was a little tiny alcove down here. And that's where the stage was. And so Kendrick's here, right? That's him, that's Kendrick. But we were up here, so we couldn't see shit. We couldn't see anything. We had no idea what was going on. I once read this book called How Forests Think by Eduardo Cohn. And I thought the book was okay, but there's one section towards the beginning, and it comes up again and again. It's a book about, it's an anthropologist who went to stay with some people living in the Ecuadorian Amazon rainforest. And the book is kind of about how there are limits to talking about anthropology and only focusing on the anthro, right, the human, that like you actually have to go beyond just the human and start, or maybe have a more broad, anyway, whatever. It's not really relevant to this. I thought it was okay, but has some good parts. But one of those good parts is when they talk about the relationship that these people have with dreams, and how I'll just read it out, okay? I also sought to pay attention to the forest experiences as they resonate through other areas that are less grounded. Everyday life in Avila is entangled with that second life of sleep and its dreams. Sleeping in Avila is not the consolidated, solitary, sensorily deprived endeavor it has so often become for us. Sleep, surrounded by lots of people in open thatch houses with no electricity and largely exposed to the outdoors, is continuously interspersed with wakefulness. One awakens in the middle of the night to sit by the fire and ward off the chill, or to receive a gourd bowl full of steaming huayusa tea, or on hearing the common putu call during a full moon, or even sometimes the distant hum of a jaguar. And one awakens also to the extemporaneous comments people make throughout the night about those voices they hear. Thanks to these continuous disruptions, throughout the night, these continuous disruptions, dreams spill into wakefulness, and wakefulness into dreams in a way that entangles both. Dreams, my own, those of my housemates, the strange ones we shared, even those of their dog or dogs, came to occupy a great deal of my ethnographic attention, especially because they so often involve the creatures and spirits that people the forest. I like that use of the word people as a, yeah. Dreams too are part of the empirical, they are kind of real. They grow out of and work on the world, and learning to be attuned to their special logics and their fragile forms of efficacy helps reveal something about the world beyond the human. Okay, whatever. The interesting part of that is noting that in the environment of the forest, where there's always noises, everyone's sleeping in these open thatched houses, everyone's sleeping near each other, there are dogs everywhere, there's, you can't really get a full night's sleep without being woken up. And because of this, the line between dream and wakefulness begins to blur. And I thought that was really interesting, that you can't actually get an accurate ethnographic idea of how these people live by strictly delineating wakefulness and dream. Like that delineation stops making sense in this particular environment. And I think, well, this is kind of the problem with that, like fieldwork anthropology, right? Is that the anthropologists who go stay with these people, to them, this is always going to be a really special moment in their lives, right? I went to stay with this tribe in the middle of nowhere for months and learned their way of life, and it was so fascinating, and I wrote 12 books about it and papers and, whatever, which is not to say it's necessarily a bad thing. It's just that it naturally is going to turn the mundane into the exceptional, right? Like to the people who live in these places, most of the stuff that anthropologists talk about is just the mundanity of everyday life. But to an anthropologist who's staying with them, it's going to be something extremely special, because to the anthropologist, it's something special and alien and whatever. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but the idea that this blending of dream and reality can be mundane and everyday got me thinking about the world. And you know, those Facebook AI posts that you've probably been seeing with here's an image, great, good job editing, thank you. And how to the boomers on Facebook who see these images, they have no idea how to distinguish them from reality. And these AI videos, like the one I used at the beginning, how they seem sort of blend into reality, and how, as it's not just AI though, it's also like, doesn't everything seem to kind of follow dream logic these days? Like, so many absurd things just happen constantly, you know? Like, hey, the world is literally ending. Like, hey, guys, you know, the climate the world's ending, and everyone's like, guys, we gotta make Nvidia the biggest stock. I mean, it's like, it's so nonsensical, you know, it just complete dream logic, right? Like, I can't draw a distinction. There's so much of, like, I can't even, anything that I could bring up to you, it's just trite, it's just overdone. If I try and mention how absurd it is that, hey, the American president is like literally senile, and the alternative is fucking Donald Trump, like, even pointing out how absurd that is just, you know, it's overdone. No one, it's just how it is. It's mundane to us at this point. Like, there's so much stuff like that. You know, just today, there's been a whole bunch of random, like, misinformation that Noam Chomsky died. But he didn't die. Like, I don't know where that came from. It's just a rumor just spread throughout the internet that he died, but he just didn't. And it reminds me of how I sometimes have dreams when my mom's still alive. And it's just like, I go home and my mom's there and she's mad at me for not cleaning up. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I thought you died. I'm sorry. I somehow got confused. I must have fucked up somehow. I have dreams like that. They're not like regular enough for me to call it like a recurring dream, but they've happened to me multiple times. Well, it's like, oh shit, I fucked up somehow. It turns out my mom's still alive. Like, people just come back to life in dreams, and it's fine. Like, it kind of just, you know what I mean? Like, all of I feel like we're living in a villa where the delineation between the logic of dreams and reality has like broken down to a significant extent. And then you add on to that, you know, I think when you start talking about this stuff, and I mentioned Naked Lunch earlier, it's quite tempting to throw drugs into the mix, right? Like, weed and psychedelics and opiates tend to have this dreamlike quality to them. And psychedelics, downers, you know, maybe less so the stimulants, but they tend to have this dreamlike quality to them. And more people, you know, as weed gets legalized everywhere, or in America, the heart of empire, the seat of empire, I don't know, that probably does something. But I didn't want to just make this about drugs, because that's kind of the most boring. That's the least interesting aspect of this. Like, I think what's more interesting is the word, like, there's no sober anymore. Like, saying, oh, people take drugs and it becomes dreamlike, that's not interesting. But the idea that, well, even when you're not on drugs, you're not sober. You're still in a weird dreamlike drugged up state via technology and so on. Like, who knows what's real? Who knows what's true? And it's not just AI, you know. Like, it as I said, you know, if you're watching this video right now, there's the only reason you're capable of making sense of it is because of the dream logic inherent to cinematic language. Although I'm not really using much cinematic language here, but you know what I'm saying. I think that the world is dissolving into a dreamlike state. And I think that this is what people are very scared of. Lots of people just believe in fantasies now. Lots of people just live in tiny social media bubbles, including me and you. We're all bubbled into our own little space, seeing our own little things that, like, how many of the people watching this video saw Jenny Nicholson's 4-hour-long Star Wars hotel video, right? Like, it seems like there are a group of people who all get the same YouTube recommendations and probably all watch that video. But then there are going to be another group of people who are like, what the fuck are you talking about? I've never heard of this. Like, we probably all have some common, cultural touch points that are just completely alien to people who live right next door to us. Like, that's such a strange thing. It's like a shared dream. What I mean by that is, you remember how I mentioned that dreams have something to do with memory. Dream logic has something to do with memory. It reminds me, one of the highly dream-like memories I have, or things I've done, is when I took a bunch. But you remember Xanax? You guys remember when benzos were like hip and cool? I tried it a couple times, and one of the times, me and my friend, we got hold of a bunch of fake Xans, which we probably should not have been doing. And I remember we were at my house. We took some sublingually, and then we went to some sort of cafe. And I don't know how we got to the cafe, but I remember being at the cafe. I don't know what we did at the cafe. I have no memory of what happened. And the next thing I know, we're in Bar Italia, which is a cafe in central, like not anywhere near my house. Somehow we ended up in Bar Italia, which is a completely different part of London, a different cafe. And there I was, standing at the counter, doing this, stirring a cappuccino. And I remember this because the guy who served me it said, "You okay, mate?" I looked up and I was like, "Oh, thanks." And I took my cappuccino. And then the next thing I remember is being on a park bench with my friend smoking a cigar. We were just smoking a cigar, sharing a cigar together. And then at some point we decided to go to the Natural History Museum, which we had taken to calling at this point Okay, so the museum is called the Natural History Museum, but we were calling it the National Mystery Museum. And the next thing I remember is being in some sort of little roundabout, or like a little green space just off the side of a road, and taking out my original Game Boy. I had brought my Game Boy with me. I opened up the battery pack for the Game Boy, and I'd stored the Xans inside the battery pack for my Game Boy, and we redosed. And then I have a vague memory of being in the National Mystery Museum, so we must have gotten there at some point, and I have no idea what happened the rest of the day. Like, that was a complete dream to me. Like, the idea, like, and after that we stopped doing benzos, not because it wasn't even an aspect of like, did we have fun or not? It was like, who knows if we had fun? We can't fucking remember it. It might have been the best time of our lives. It might have sucked. Who knows? Like, we have no idea what happened. And so we just stopped. That was one of the examples. We also pissed off the dealer somehow, and he just like decided to like, I don't know what happened with that, but that was a very dreamlike experience. And the reason is because of the memory blockage that when you take benzos, it prevents you from forming new memories very well. And so when as I mentioned that like Jenny Nicholson video to you, right? I'm sure a number of you have watched it. Can you remember like very much that happened in it? There are many popular YouTube videos with millions of views that I've watched. Like, I've rewatched those Tim Rogers Action Button reviews multiple times, but they're also long and continuous. It's even though I can remember my favorite parts of them, they also all kind of blend together. Like I couldn't tell you which parts, which stories and anecdotes come from which video. They all kind of blend together, and I couldn't tell you. You know, I probably watched a good few hours of YouTube videos yesterday. I don't remember which ones I watched. I don't know. You know, I probably did all sorts of things, and I just don't know what happened. That's the sort of situation I'm talking about. This strange memory lapsing, where, and it's quite mundane. I think that's what's worth pointing out, is that just like the blending of dreams and reality in the Amazon rainforest tribe would not be considered something exceptional. We don't really think about this kind of thing. Of course, your brain is naturally not going to remember everything, but I think that the way in which we consume information these days with technology, and the way everyone's separated off into their own little space, and the way that we each have a feed curated just for us and so on, creates a world of shared dreams. And that as time goes on, this dream logic is it just like a dream doesn't seem strange while you're in it, right? Like as soon as you wake up is the only time when it becomes funny or strange or whatever, right? Like it didn't seem unusual that the venue that I saw Travis Scott in was designed in that way. It just was like, oh, that's annoying. I didn't think about how no one would ever build something like that, right? But in this case, there's nowhere to wake up to. So you're always just trapped in that realm where you think it's normal, and you can't really wake up. And that's fine. Like, this is the real thing I want to impress upon you in this video, is that everyone's terrified of AI, and these misinformations and social media and whatever, because they are terrified of losing reality. But I'm not convinced that I'm not convinced that we want to visit the desert of the real, right? I think we want to stay on the map. I think that maybe we should just accept that we're all going to live in dreams, and that living in a dream world. I don't know. I'm not here to say it's good or bad. I think it's inevitable, and I think there's no need to be a transcendental miserabilist about it. I think a lot of people were talking a few years ago about like post-truth, which kind of became a meaningless buzzword. But I think at this point, we're post-wakefulness, or we're heading into a world of post-wakefulness, where this is very Baudrillard, right? My Baudrillard is lacking. You'll have to forgive me here. I am not. I know I referenced that. Hold on. If I can remember this name, you're going to be really impressed. Is it Jorge Luis Borges or something? Yeah! Is that the guy who wrote that poem about the map? Or story about the map? If I'm right about that, you got to give me a shout out in the comments. See, I can remember things. Not everything is true. Not every memory isn't that bad. Anyway, yeah, I'm sure I need to read Baudrillard to fully understand what I'm talking about here. But I'm getting this sense that whatever the hell he was talking about is intensifying and accelerating. And that I feel fairly nihilistic about it, but not in a sad, I mean nihilistic, I don't mean sad, I don't mean miserable, I don't mean transcendental miserabilist, I mean it's all very Dada,